Ethan lived a life that most people would forget easily. He woke up early, went to work, came home tired, ate simple food, and slept. His small apartment was clean but empty, filled with quiet that followed him everywhere. He was not unhappy, but he was not truly happy either. Life felt like something he was watching instead of living. He believed this was normal. Most people around him looked the same, busy, distant, and tired. One evening, after a long shift, Ethan decided to walk instead of taking the bus. The city lights flickered above him, and the air felt cooler than usual. He took a path near an old park that most people avoided at night. It was peaceful there, almost forgotten. As he walked, he noticed a woman sitting alone on a bench under a broken street lamp. She looked calm, not afraid, as if she belonged to the quiet. She had long hair that moved slightly even when there was no wind. Her eyes caught Ethan's attention right away. They were sharp, but warm, observant, yet kind. When their eyes met, she did not look away. Instead, she smiled softly, as if she had been expecting him. Ethan almost kept walking. Talking to strangers was not something he usually did, but something about her made him stop. He nodded awkwardly and asked if she was okay. Her voice was gentle when she answered, thanking him and saying she was just resting. They spoke for a few minutes about simple things: the weather, the park, the quiet. Her name was Lena. Their conversation felt easy, like talking to someone he had known for years. She listened carefully, and when she spoke, her words felt thoughtful and honest. Ethan realized he was smiling, something he rarely did without forcing it. When they finally said goodbye, he felt lighter, as if something important had just happened, even though nothing big had occurred. Days passed, but Ethan could not stop thinking about Lena. He returned to the park the next evening, telling himself it was just for fresh air. She was there again, sitting in the same place. This time they talked longer, then longer again the next night. Soon, meeting her became part of his routine. Lena was different from anyone Ethan had ever met. She seemed to notice things others ignored: the sound of leaves moving, the way people avoided eye contact, the sadness hidden behind polite smiles. She spoke about life with a quiet understanding, as if she had seen more of the world than she let on. Yet she was also cautious. When Ethan asked about her past, she answered only small pieces, never the full story. As weeks turned into months, their connection deepened. They walked together, shared meals, and laughed at simple jokes. Ethan felt seen for the first time in his life. He did not need to pretend with her. Around Lena, he felt real. One night, as they sat in the park under the stars, Lena grew quiet. Her hands trembled slightly as she told Ethan there was something he needed to know. Her voice was steady, but her eyes showed fear. She warned him that once she spoke, things could never go back to how they were. Ethan listened carefully, his heart pounding. Lena explained that she was not fully human. She came from a hidden world that existed alongside this one, unseen by most. She was a foxwoman, able to live among humans, but not truly belong to them. Her form could change, though she kept it hidden to stay safe. At first, Ethan thought she was joking, but when he looked at her face, he saw no humor, only honesty. Lena showed him a glimpse of her true self, not fully, just enough to prove her words. Ethan's breath caught. Fear rushed through him, sharp and sudden. Everything he believed about the world cracked in that moment. He stood up, pacing, his mind racing. This was impossible. This could not be real. Yet he could not deny what he had seen. Lena did not chase him or beg him to stay. She simply waited, giving him space. Her eyes filled with sadness and acceptance. Ethan thought about his empty apartment, his quiet life, and the connection he felt with her. He realized that even if she was not human, the feelings between them were real. She had listened, cared, and stood by him when no one else had. Slowly, he sat back down. He told Lena he was afraid, but he did not want to walk away. Her shoulders relaxed, and tears filled her eyes. That night, they talked until the sky began to lighten. Lena explained the rules she lived by, the dangers of being discovered, and the loneliness of hiding her true self for so long. Ethan shared his fears too, not of her, but of losing her. Their relationship changed after that, but But it did not end. Instead, it grew stronger. Trust replaced fear. Ethan learned how carefully Lena had to live, how every day was a balance between freedom and safety. He became her protector, not with strength, but with loyalty and silence. When Ethan asked Lena to marry him, it was not dramatic. There was no crowd, no big moment. He simply asked her one evening while they cooked together in his small kitchen. Lena was shocked at first. She reminded him of the risks, the judgment, the uncertainty. Ethan told her life already felt uncertain, and he wanted to face it with her. Their wedding was quiet and private. Only a few trusted people attended, none knowing the full truth. Lena wore a simple dress, and Ethan could not remember ever feeling so sure about anything. When they promised to stay together, it was not about magic or fantasy. It was about choosing each other every day. After marriage, they moved into a slightly bigger place. It was still modest, but it felt like a home. They learned each other's habits, strengths, and weaknesses. Lena struggled with some human routines, while Ethan learned to accept parts of her life he could never fully understand. But they worked through it one day at a time. At night, when the world was quiet, Lena would sometimes sit by the window, looking out with a distant expression. Ethan knew she missed parts of her old life. He never asked her to change who she was. Instead, he listened. That became the foundation of their marriage. They spoke about the future carefully. Children, work, safety, all topics filled with both hope and fear. But for now, they focused on the present. They cooked meals together, argued over small things, laughed over nothing, and shared silence that felt comfortable instead of empty. Ethan knew their life was unusual, but as he lay beside Lena each night, listening to her steady breathing, he realized something important. Love did not need to be simple to be real. It just needed honesty, patience, and the courage to stay. What Ethan did not know yet was that this was only the beginning. Love had brought them together, but life would soon test that love in ways neither of them could imagine. For now, though, they held on to the quiet happiness they had built, unaware of how fragile and precious it truly was. Life after marriage did not suddenly become perfect. In many ways, it became more complicated. Ethan and Lena quickly learned that love could not protect them from daily struggles, but it could help them face them together. They moved into a small, rented house on the edge of town. It was quiet, with few neighbors and tall trees around it. Ethan chose the place carefully. He wanted Lena to feel safe, to have space where she did not need to hide every second. Lena appreciated his effort, even though she knew safety could never be guaranteed. Every morning, Ethan went to work as usual. He worked longer hours now because expenses had increased. Lena stayed home most days. She tried different jobs, but fitting into the human world was harder than she expected. The rules, the schedules, the pressure to act a certain way, all felt heavy. Still, she tried because she wanted to help. At home, they learned each other's rhythms. Ethan liked things planned. Lena preferred to follow her instincts. Sometimes this caused small arguments. Ethan worried about money and the future. Lena worried about freedom and safety. They did not always agree, but they learned to listen instead of walking away. Lena spent a lot of time learning how to live a fully human life. She watched people closely when she went outside. She practiced how to speak less carefully, how to blend in, how to hide habits that came naturally to her. Some days, she felt proud of herself. Other days, she felt tired and lost. At night, she often shared these feelings with Ethan. He listened, even when he did not fully understand. He learned that loving someone did not mean fixing their problems. Sometimes it meant simply being there. Months passed, and their bond deepened. Then one evening, Lena told Ethan something that changed everything again. She was expecting a child. Ethan sat in silence for a long time. His first feeling was joy, warm and overwhelming. Then fear followed close behind. He thought about money, safety, and the secrets they carried. Lena watched his face carefully, afraid his fear would turn into regret. But Ethan reached for her hand and told her the truth. He was scared, but he was also happy. He promised they would find a way, just like they always had. Pregnancy was not easy for Lena. Her body reacted differently, and doctors asked questions she could not answer honestly. Ethan attended every appointment, staying alert, ready to step in if needed. They had practiced stories, explanations, and excuses. Each visit felt like walking on thin ice. At home, Lena changed. She became more protective of herself and the growing life inside her. She avoided crowded places and loud sounds. Sometimes she stayed awake at night, worried about what their child might become. Human, fox, or something in between. She did not know what that would mean for their safety. Ethan tried to stay strong, but he had worries too. He took extra shifts, came home late, and fell asleep on the couch more than once. The stress slowly built between them, not from anger, but from exhaustion. When their first child was born, everything else faded away. The moment Ethan held the baby, he felt a kind of love he had never known. Lena watched them with tears in her eyes, her heart full and afraid at the same time. The baby looked human, but Lena noticed small signs others would miss. The way the child reacted to sounds, the way their eyes followed movement too closely. These signs filled Lena with both pride and worry. Bringing the baby home changed their lives completely. Sleep became rare. The house that once felt quiet now echoed with cries and movement. Ethan and Lena took turns staying up at night, learning through trial and error how to comfort their child. Money became tighter. Diapers, food, doctor, visits, everything added up quickly. Ethan felt pressure like never before. Lena wanted to help more, but caring for the baby took all her energy. Despite the stress, there were beautiful moments. Late-night feedings, when the world was silent. Soft laughter when the baby made strange faces. Quiet mornings when they all lay together, holding on to peace before the day began. As time passed, the baby grew stronger and more curious. Lena noticed instincts appearing early. The child reacted quickly, learned fast, and showed awareness beyond their age. Ethan noticed too, though he tried not to think too deeply about it. They agreed to keep everything private. No social media posts, no unnecessary visitors. Even family visits were carefully planned. They became experts at hiding the parts of their life that did not fit into the normal world. A year later, life surprised them again. Lena was expecting another child. This time, the news did not come with shock, but with heavy silence. Ethan sat at the table, staring at the floor. Lena waited, knowing this would be harder. 2 children meant double the responsibility, double the risk. Ethan finally spoke. He said he was tired, scared, and unsure, but he still loved her and their family. Lena admitted she felt the same. They held each other, understanding that honesty mattered more than pretending to be strong. The second pregnancy was even more difficult. Lena's energy dropped quickly. Some days, she barely left the bed. Ethan took over most of the housework while caring for their first child. Exhaustion became part of their daily life. When the second child arrived, the house felt smaller. Noise filled every corner. Sleep disappeared almost completely. Ethan sometimes forgot what day it was. Lena felt stretched thin, trying to give enough love to everyone. Both children showed different traits. One seemed more human. The other showed more of Lena's nature. Lena worried constantly about how they would explain these differences as the children grew older. Outside their home, life continued without care. Bills arrived on time. Rent increased. The car needed repairs. Ethan felt like he was always running, always behind. Lena noticed his tired eyes and quiet sighs. Small arguments began to appear. Not loud, not cruel, but sharp. Words spoken without thinking. Silence that lasted too long. They never questioned their love, but they questioned their strength. Late one night, after both children finally fell asleep, Lena sat beside Ethan on the floor. She told him she feared their children would never truly belong anywhere. Ethan admitted he feared he would fail them. They did not find answers that night, but they held hands and promised to keep trying. Their family was not normal. It was not easy, but it was real. And as the children slept peacefully, unaware of the worries waiting for them in the future, Ethan and Lena knew one thing for sure. Their love was no longer just about the two of them. It was about protecting what they had created, no matter how hard life became. By the time both children were toddlers, life no longer moved gently. It rushed forward without waiting for Ethan or Lena to catch their breath. Every day felt full before it even began. Ethan's mornings started before sunrise. The alarm rang and he shut it off quickly so it would not wake the children. He dressed quietly, drank coffee that had already gone cold, and checked his phone for messages from work. There were always more shifts available, always more hours he could take. He accepted most of them, telling himself it was necessary. Lena watched him leave from the doorway many mornings. She wanted to say something comforting, but most days she did not know what words would help. She knew he was carrying the weight of the family on his shoulders. At the same time, she felt alone once the door closed behind him. Her days were filled with caring for the children, feeding them, cleaning up after them, calming them when they cried, and watching them closely. They were curious, fast, and very aware of their surroundings. Lena had to be careful all the time. A moment of distraction could lead to questions she was not ready to answer. She rarely had time to rest. Even when the children slept, her mind stayed awake. She worried about money, about safety, about the future. She missed the quiet moments she and Ethan used to share. Now, their conversations were short and often about tasks instead of feelings. Bills began to pile up. Medical expenses, rent, food, utilities, everything cost more than they expected. Ethan tried to keep track of it all, but the numbers never seemed to improve. Every time he thought they were catching up, something else went wrong. The car broke down one afternoon on Ethan's way home. He stood by the road, phone in hand, staring at the engine with tired eyes. The repair cost more than he had saved that month. He felt a sharp frustration rise inside him, followed by shame. He wondered if he was doing enough. When he finally got home late that night, Lena was exhausted. The children had been restless, and she had barely eaten. When Ethan mentioned the repair cost, Lena sighed without thinking. It was not meant to hurt him, but it did. The silence that followed felt heavy. Small moments like this began to happen more often. Not because they stopped caring, but because they were both tired. Words came out wrong. Feelings stayed hidden too long. Lena tried to find work again. She thought even a small income could help. She applied for part-time jobs that allowed her to work from home. Some days she felt hopeful. Other days she felt out of place, unsure how to present herself, unsure how much of herself she had to hide. When she finally found a small online job, it helped a little, but it also added pressure. She worked late at night after the children slept, her eyes burning as she stared at the screen. Ethan sometimes found her asleep at the table, the computer still on. Their house felt crowded, not just with noise, but with unspoken thoughts. Toys covered the floor. Dishes filled the sink. Laundry never seemed to end. Ethan cleaned when he could, but he was rarely home long enough. On weekends, they tried to spend time together as a family. They went to quiet parks, avoided crowded places, and watched their children carefully. To strangers, they looked like any other family. But both Ethan and Lena felt the tension beneath the surface. One afternoon, their older child asked a question Lena had feared for a long time. The child asked why they were different from other kids. The question was simple, innocent, but it made Lena's heart race. She answered carefully, saying everyone was different in their own way. The child accepted the answer for now, but Lena knew this was only the beginning. Questions would come again, and next time they would be harder. When Ethan heard about it that evening, he felt fear tighten in his chest. He realized how close they were getting to truths they were not ready to explain. That night, he lay awake long after Lena fell asleep, staring at the ceiling. He began to feel something he did not want to admit: resentment. Not toward Lena or the children, but toward the situation. Toward a life that felt like constant effort without reward. He hated himself for feeling that way. Lena felt her own version of resentment too. She missed parts of herself she had buried to survive in the human world. She missed freedom, quiet, and the ability to move without fear. Sometimes she wondered if marrying Ethan had taken her further away from who she truly was. Neither of them spoke these thoughts aloud. They both believed love meant protecting the other from pain. But silence slowly built walls between them. One evening, after the children were finally asleep, Ethan and Lena sat at opposite ends of the couch. The television was on, but neither of them was watching. Ethan wanted to talk, but he did not know how to begin. Lena broke the silence by asking if he was angry with her. Ethan looked surprised. He said no, but his voice lacked strength. Lena nodded, but she did not fully believe him. She asked if he was happy. The question hung in the air. Ethan took a long breath. He said he loved her and the children more than anything. But he admitted he was tired of worrying, tired of feeling like he was always failing. Lena listened quietly. When he finished, she spoke softly. She said she felt lost, like she was living a life that was never truly meant for her. She admitted she sometimes felt like a burden, even though she knew he never treated her that way. Hearing this hurt Ethan deeply. He moved closer and held her hand. He told her she was not a burden. He reminded her of how much she did every day, things no one else could do. They talked for a long time that night. Not loudly, not with anger, just honesty. Some tears were shed. Some fears were shared. They did not solve everything, but they felt closer afterward. Still, the problems did not disappear. The next weeks were just as busy, just as hard. Ethan continued working long hours. Lena continued balancing work, children, and secrecy. One day a neighbor stopped by unexpectedly. Lena was caught off guard. One of the children reacted quickly to a sudden noise, faster than normal. Lena noticed the neighbor's confused expression. She laughed it off, made an excuse, and quickly ended the visit. But after the door closed, her hands shook. She realized how fragile their safety was. One mistake, one wrong moment, could change everything. That night, she told Ethan what happened. His face went pale. He realized how close they were to being exposed. Fear replaced exhaustion in his chest. They discussed moving again, but moving cost money they did not have. Every solution seemed to create a new problem. They felt trapped by circumstances beyond their control. Arguments became more frequent, still small, but sharper. Sometimes they ended without resolution, just tired apologies and quiet distance. Love was still there, but it was stretched thin. Despite everything, there were still moments that reminded them why they stayed. The children's laughter, shared jokes whispered late at night, the comfort of knowing someone understood their fears without judgment. One night, after a particularly hard day, Ethan came home to find Lena asleep on the floor beside the children's beds. She had fallen asleep watching over them. He covered her with a blanket and stood there for a long time. In that moment, he remembered why he chose this life. Not because it was easy, but because it was real. Lena woke later and found Ethan sitting quietly nearby. They exchanged a tired smile. No words were needed. Life was testing them. Their love was no longer new or exciting. It was worn, challenged, and strained, but it was still standing. Neither of them knew what the next test would be. They only knew that something had to change soon. Because love alone, no matter how strong, could not carry everything forever. The change came sooner than Ethan and Lena expected, and it came quietly without warning. It started on an ordinary afternoon. Lena took the children to a small community playground nearby. She usually avoided busy places, but the children had been restless, and she thought a short visit would be harmless. The weather was calm, and only a few families were there. For a while, everything felt normal. The children played on the swings, laughing freely. Lena sat on a bench, watching carefully, her senses alert as always. She reminded herself to breathe, to relax just a little. Then it happened. Another child tripped and fell near Lena's younger child. The sound of crying was sudden and loud. Before Lena could react, her child moved with quick speed, reaching the fallen child in a way that was not usual. It was not dramatic, but it was noticeable. A few parents turned their heads. One woman frowned slightly, watching more closely. Lena's heart raced. She quickly gathered her children and smiled, making an excuse about needing to leave early. As they walked home, Lena's hands shook. The children sensed her fear and grew quiet. By the time they reached the house, Lena locked the door and leaned against it, breathing heavily. That evening, when Ethan came home, Lena told him everything. Her voice trembled as she explained how close they came to being noticed. Ethan listened, his face tight with worry. This time, fear did not fade into exhaustion. It stayed. They both realized something had changed. Children were growing, and controlling every moment was becoming impossible. The world outside their home was not built for secrets like theirs. That night, Ethan suggested something he had avoided thinking about for a long time. He said maybe they should consider telling someone the truth. One trusted person, a family member, a doctor, someone who could help. Lena reacted immediately. She said it was too dangerous. Once a secret was shared, it could never be taken back. She had lived her whole life hiding for a reason. Ethan understood her fear, but he also felt trapped. He said living in constant fear was hurting them and the children. His voice rose slightly, not in anger but frustration. For the first time in years, they argued openly. Words came faster than thought. Lena accused Ethan of not understanding what discovery could mean. Ethan accused Lena of expecting him to carry everything alone. The argument ended with silence. Lena took the children to bed early. Ethan slept on the couch. Days passed with tension hanging between them. They spoke only when necessary. The house felt colder, even when the heat was on. Both of them felt hurt, but neither knew how to fix it. Ethan began to wonder if love was enough anymore. He hated the thought, but it kept returning. Felt like he was failing as a partner and as a parent. No matter how hard he worked, the problems only grew. Lena, on the other hand, felt something she had never felt before: regret. She wondered if marrying Ethan had been selfish. She had brought him into a life full of danger and secrecy. She loved him deeply, but she questioned whether love justified the cost. One night after the children were asleep, Lena finally spoke. She told Ethan she sometimes thought he would be better off without her. The words hurt to say, but they felt honest. Ethan looked at her in shock, told her he never once thought of leaving her. But he admitted he felt overwhelmed, like he was drowning. He said he missed feeling like a team instead of two tired people trying to survive. They both cried that night. Not loudly, just quiet tears filled with fear and confusion. The idea of separation, once unthinkable, now sat between them. Not as a decision, but as a possibility. And that scared them more than anything else. In the following weeks, things did not improve right away. Another close call happened when one child reacted strongly to a loud noise at a grocery store. A man stared for too long. Lena pulled the children close and left without buying anything. That night, Lena could not sleep. She sat by the window, watching the street, her thoughts racing. She realized something important. Hiding was no longer just about her. It was about the children. And she was not sure hiding was protecting them anymore. The next morning, she told Ethan she was willing to talk about change. Not giving up everything, but adjusting. Finding safer ways to live. Teaching the children control. Preparing them for the truth when they were older. Ethan felt a mix of relief and fear. He agreed, but he also said something hard. Said he needed her to trust him more. To believe that he could help make decisions, not just follow rules born from fear. Lena nodded. Trust had always been difficult for her. Her world had taught her to survive alone. Learning to truly share responsibility felt frightening. They decided to start small. They created routines to teach the children calm reactions. They practiced explanations for curious strangers. They discussed moving to a quieter area again, even if it meant downsizing. But the emotional distance between Ethan and Lena did not disappear overnight. Old words still echoed. Old fears remained. One evening, after a long day, Ethan snapped over something smaller, broken cup. His voice was sharp. Lena froze, hurt flashing across her face. He immediately apologized, but the damage was done. Lena retreated inward. She became quieter, more distant. Ethan noticed and felt guilt eat at him. He realized how close they were to becoming people they did not recognize. That night, Ethan packed a small bag and slept at a friend's place. He said he needed space to think, not because he wanted to leave, but because he was afraid of saying something he could not take back. The house felt empty without him. Lena walked through the rooms, memories echoing in every corner. The children asked where their father was. Lena told them he would be back soon. While alone, Lena reflected deeply. She remembered her life before Ethan, safe but lonely. She realized that despite all the fear and struggle, this life had also given her love, family, and belonging. Ethan, sitting in a quiet room miles away, felt the same. He thought about the first night he met Lena, the trust they had built, the promises they made. He knew he did not want a life without her or the children. After 2 nights apart, Ethan returned home. He did not bring big speeches or solutions. He brought honesty. He told Lena he was scared, not of her or the children, but of losing them. He said he wanted to fight for their family, but he could not do it alone. Lena listened, tears in her eyes. She told him she was scared too of being seen, of being rejected, of failing as a mother. She admitted she had been holding on too tightly to control. They did not fix everything that day. But they chose something important. They chose to stay. They agreed to face the future as partners again. Not perfect, not fearless, but honest. Outside, the world remained unforgiving. Secrets still existed. Bills still arrived. The children still grew more curious every day, but inside that small house, something shifted. Not peace, not certainty, just commitment. Sometimes that was enough to keep a family together, even when everything else felt like it was falling apart. When Ethan came back home, nothing felt magically better. The same walls stood around them. The same bills waited on the table. The same worries lived quietly in their minds. But something important had changed. They were no longer running from the truth of their life. They were facing it together. The next morning began slowly. The children woke early, full of energy, unaware of the emotional storm their parents had been through. Lena made breakfast while Ethan helped the kids get dressed. Their movements felt careful, as if they were learning how to be around each other again. No big talks yet, just small kindnesses. Later that day, while the children played, Ethan and Lena sat at the kitchen table. Sunlight came through the window, warming the room. Ethan spoke first. He said he wanted their home to be a place of honesty, not fear. He did not want the children to grow up feeling like something was wrong with them. Lena listened closely. She looked tired, but calmer than before. She agreed. She said she had spent her whole life hiding, but she did not want that life for their children. Still, she feared the world's reaction if the truth ever came out. They decided on something simple but powerful. The children would grow up knowing who they were, slowly and gently. No lies, no shame. Just care and guidance. They would teach them control, kindness, and caution. They could not change the world, but they could prepare their family to live in it. That decision did not remove fear, but it gave it direction. They also talked about practical things: money, work, rest. Ethan admitted he could not keep working nonstop without burning out. Lena admitted she needed help and time for herself too. They made small changes. Ethan reduced overtime when possible. Lena adjusted her work hours and asked for help when she needed it. Life did not become easier right away, but it became more balanced. The children continued to grow, curious and bright. Ethan noticed how carefully Lena guided them, never with harsh rules, but with patience. When one child reacted too quickly or strongly, Lena gently slowed them down, turning it into a game or lesson. Sometimes Ethan helped too. He learned how to stay calm, how to distract attention when needed, how to protect without controlling. He was no longer just reacting to fear. He was participating. As the children grew older, questions became deeper. One evening, the older child asked why they had to be more careful than other kids. Lena took a deep breath and told them a simple truth. She said they were special in a quiet way, and that being special meant being responsible. The child did not fully understand, but they trusted her. That trust meant everything. Outside the home, life remained demanding. Bills still arrived. Unexpected costs still appeared. Some nights, Ethan lay awake worrying about the future, but he no longer felt alone with those fears. Lena listened, and sometimes that was enough. There were still arguments, still moments of exhaustion, still days when patience ran thin, but now they talked sooner. They apologized faster. They remembered why they chose each other. One evening, after putting the children to bed, Ethan and Lena sat outside under the quiet sky. The night was calm. Lena rested her head on Ethan's shoulder. She said something she had never said before. She thanked him for staying, even when life became hard. Ethan held her hand and said he had learned something important. Love was not proven by grand moments. It was proven by showing up tired, scared, and unsure, and still choosing to stay. They talked about the future, not in big dreams, but in realistic hopes. A safer home, stable work, children who felt loved and accepted. They knew challenges would come, but they no longer feared them in the same way. Time moved forward, as it always does. The children entered school. Ethan and Lena chose carefully, staying involved, staying aware. There were moments of worry, moments when Ethan's heart raced at a comment or a look from others, but nothing broke. Life continued. One day, after a long school event, Ethan watched his children laughing and running. They looked happy. Normal in the ways that mattered. Different in ways that made them special. He felt something warm rise in his chest. Pride. Lena stood beside him, sensing his thoughts. She smiled softly. For the first time in a long while, her smile carried peace instead of fear. That night, as the house grew quiet, Ethan and Lena sat together, reflecting on how far they had come. Their love story had not followed any simple path. It was not easy. It was not perfect. But it was strong. They had learned that love changes over time. It begins as excitement grows into commitment and survives through effort. It is tested by sleepless nights, financial pressure, fear, and doubt. But when cared for, it deepens. Ethan realized that marrying Lena had not given him a simple life. It had given him a meaningful one. And meaning, he learned, was worth the struggle. Lena realized that choosing a human life had not taken her identity away. It had added something to it. Family, belonging, purpose. They did not know what the future would bring. The world could be kind or cruel. Their children's paths were still unfolding, but they were ready to face it together. As Ethan turned off the lights and joined Lena in bed, the house felt quiet in a good way. Not empty. Not heavy. Just lived in. Love had not solved all their problems, but it had given them the strength to face them. And for Ethan and Lena, that was more than enough.